What inmates eat inside the world's most secure prison, inside ADX Florence full documentary. In the high desert of southern Colorado, where the wind cuts across empty land and silence feels permanent, there is a prison designed to eliminate unpredictability. No crowds. No noise. No contact unless it is controlled. This is ADX Florence, the United States' only federal supermax prison. For decades, the world has focused on who is held here. Terrorists. Organized crime leaders. Domestic extremists. Inmates considered too dangerous, too influential, or too disruptive for any other facility. But today, we're examining something far more basic, and far more revealing. What does an inmate eat inside the most secure prison on earth? Because inside ADX Florence, food is not just nutrition. It is control. It is routine. And in some cases, it is one of the last remaining links to the outside world.
Before we dive into today's powerful story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more gripping tales. Your support helps us keep sharing these stories, and we wouldn't want you to miss any of the action. Now, let's get started.
A prison built for total control. ADX Florence, officially known as the United States Penitentiary Administrative Maximum Facility, opened in 1994. It was designed after a series of violent incidents across the federal prison system, including murders of correctional officers and inmates at other high-security institutions. The goal was clear. Create a facility where the most dangerous federal inmates could be confined with virtually no opportunity to harm others. The result was a prison unlike any before it. Inmates spend approximately 23 hours per day alone in their cells. Movement is minimal. Interaction is rare. Even meals, something communal in nearly every other prison, are eaten alone. And that brings us to the question most people never ask. What does food look like in a place designed to remove all freedom? Who decides what inmates eat? Every meal served at ADX Florence is governed by the Federal Bureau of Prisons, commonly referred to as the BOP. ADX Florence does not operate on secret menus or experimental diets. Instead, it follows standardized federal prison meal guidelines used across high-security institutions. These guidelines are designed to meet daily caloric requirements, nutritional standards, religious and medical accommodations when approved. According to Bureau of Prisons policy, meals must provide adequate nutrition and be prepared under sanitary conditions, regardless of an inmate's crimes. That policy applies even here. Even at the most restrictive prison in the country, food deprivation is not an authorized punishment. What is different is how that food is delivered, consumed, and controlled. How meals are delivered. At ADX Florence, inmates do not walk to a cafeteria. There is no chow hall. There are no shared tables or conversations over meals. Instead, food is delivered directly to the cell. Each cell door includes a narrow slot, just large enough for a tray to pass through. The slot opens. The tray is inserted. The slot closes. The entire process takes seconds. The inmate eats alone, inside a concrete cell measuring roughly 7 by 12 feet. Utensils, when provided, are carefully selected. Some inmates receive only flexible plastic sporks, depending on their security classification and behavior record. Metal cutlery is rare and controlled. Once the meal is finished, the tray is retrieved through the same slot. No conversation. No eye contact. No movement beyond the cell. What is actually on the tray? So what's on that tray? Based on Bureau of Prisons menus, court records, and reporting from reputable outlets, inmates at ADX Florence typically receive 3 meals per day, unless restricted for disciplinary reasons under lawful procedures. A standard meal may include a protein source, such as beans, eggs, chicken, or processed meat. A starch, rice, potatoes, pasta, or bread. A vegetable. A fruit. A beverage, often milk or a powdered drink. Portion sizes are regulated and designed to meet daily nutritional requirements. Importantly, menus rotate. There is no single ADX Florence meal. Food offerings vary by day and by supply availability. Luxury items are not included. Everything is functional. Food here is not meant to comfort. It is meant to sustain. Eating in isolation. Eating alone, day after day, year after year, has documented psychological effects. Multiple court cases and psychological evaluations have noted that prolonged isolation can alter how inmates experience basic daily activities, including meals. Former inmates have described food as one of the few markers of time. A signal that the day is progressing. Sometimes, the only variation in an otherwise identical routine. However, these accounts are individual experiences, not universal facts. The Bureau of Prisons maintains that meals at ADX Florence meet constitutional standards. What remains unconfirmed, and often debated, is how isolation alters the experience of eating, even when nutrition is technically sufficient. Why food matters here. In most prisons, food is a shared experience. At ADX Florence, it is one of the few daily events that breaks the silence. There are no televisions during meals. No dining halls. No casual interactions. Every bite happens alone. And as we'll see later in this documentary, food can also become a bargaining chip. A disciplinary tool. A source of protest. Because when everything else is controlled, movement, communication, even light, food remains one of the last tangible interactions between inmate and institution. Special diets, religion, and disciplinary food. Special diets inside ADX Florence. Despite its extreme security, ADX Florence operates under the same constitutional and administrative obligations as other federal prisons when it comes to inmate nutrition. This includes special diets, which fall into 3 primary categories. Medical diets. Religious diets. Administrative or disciplinary meal modifications. Each category is tightly regulated. None are granted casually. And at ADX Florence, approval does not mean flexibility, it means precision. Medical diets. Necessity, not comfort. Medical diets at ADX Florence are issued only after evaluation by prison medical staff. These may include accommodations for diabetes, high blood pressure, food allergies, gastrointestinal disorders. Once approved, meals are adjusted to meet clinical requirements, such as reduced sugar, reduced sodium, or modified textures. However, court records and inmate testimony indicate that medical diets are nutritionally focused, not tailored for taste or preference. If an inmate refuses a medically prescribed diet, the refusal is documented, and the standard meal may resume unless refusal poses a serious health risk. There is no evidence from verified sources that medical diets at ADX Florence are intentionally punitive. But they are strictly controlled. Religious diets in total isolation. Federal law requires prisons to make reasonable accommodations for religious practice. That includes food. At ADX Florence, inmates may request religious diets such as kosher meals, halal meals, meatless or fasting accommodations tied to specific faiths. Approval requires a formal request, verification of religious affiliation, ongoing compliance with the dietary rules. Once approved, meals are provided according to standardized religious menus used across the federal system. These meals are often pre-packaged to maintain compliance and reduce contamination risks. Importantly, religious meals are not optional once accepted. Abuse of the accommodation, such as trading food or repeatedly refusing meals, can result in revocation. Isolation does not eliminate religious rights, but it does limit how those rights are practiced. The most controversial food in U.S. prisons. Few prison foods are as controversial, or as misunderstood, as Nutriloaf. Often referred to in media as the loaf, Nutriloaf is a dense mixture of grains, vegetables, and protein sources, baked into a single block. It is designed to meet basic nutritional requirements, eliminate utensils, reduce opportunities for food misuse. Nutriloaf is not a regular menu item. It has historically been used in some correctional systems as a short-term disciplinary measure, typically when inmates misuse food or utensils in dangerous ways. Has Nutriloaf been used at ADX Florence? This is where accuracy matters. There is no publicly confirmed evidence that Nutriloaf has been used as a standard disciplinary meal at ADX Florence in recent years. Some lawsuits involving federal prisons reference nutritionally complete food loaf alternatives, but ADX Florence specific usage is not consistently documented in verified public records. What is confirmed? The Federal Bureau of Prisons permits temporary meal modifications under strict conditions. Any such use is subject to medical oversight and legal review. Prolonged or punitive food deprivation is prohibited. Claims that Nutriloaf is routinely served at ADX Florence are unsubstantiated. When food modifications occur, they are typically short-term and tied to documented security concerns. Food as behavior management. At ADX Florence, food is not a reward, but it can be affected by behavior. Examples include temporary loss of commissary access, restriction of certain food items, enhanced monitoring during meals. Commissary items, such as snacks or supplemental foods, are limited and often unavailable to inmates in the most restrictive housing phases. This means most inmates rely almost entirely on standard-issued meals. Food becomes predictable. Predictability becomes control. When food marks time. For inmates held in near-total isolation, meals become time anchors. Former inmates have described counting days by meal rotations, measuring weeks by menu changes, associating certain foods with specific days. These accounts are subjective but consistent across multiple testimonies. When nothing else changes, food becomes a signal that time is still moving. And when meals are delayed, altered, or restricted, the psychological impact can be significant, even if nutrition remains technically adequate. A system designed to withstand scrutiny. ADX Florence has been the subject of congressional inquiries, federal lawsuits, international human rights criticism. Food service policies are frequently examined in these reviews because nutrition is one of the few measurable daily conditions of confinement. To date, federal courts have generally upheld the prison's meal practices as constitutional, while acknowledging the broader debate around long-term isolation. The food itself is rarely the sole issue. It's what the food represents. Behind the kitchen doors, how food is prepared. Where the meals begin. Before any tray reaches a cell at ADX Florence, it passes through one of the most controlled environments in the federal prison system, the prison kitchen. Unlike many lower security facilities, ADX Florence does not rely on large inmate kitchen crews working freely alongside staff. Security concerns fundamentally shape how food service operates here. Every movement, ingredient, and tool is accounted for. This is not a cafeteria operation. It is a logistics operation. Who actually cooks the food? At most federal prisons, inmates assist heavily in food preparation. At ADX Florence, that practice is significantly limited. Verified reporting and Bureau of Prisons documentation indicate food services are overseen by BOP-employed staff. Inmate participation, if permitted, is minimal and highly supervised. Only inmates with the lowest internal risk classifications may be considered for limited roles. Many meals arrive at ADX Florence partially or fully prepared from centralized federal prison food supply systems, reducing the need for inmate handling. This minimizes contraband risks, weaponization of kitchen tools, sabotage of food or equipment. Efficiency here is a security measure. Standardization over variety. Every tray is built to be identical within its menu cycle. Portions are measured. Calories are calculated. Menus are approved in advance. There is no improvisation. This level of standardization serves two purposes: nutritional compliance, security predictability. If every inmate receives the same meal, there is less room for disputes, favoritism claims, or manipulation. Food here is not personal. It is procedural. The journey from kitchen to cell. Once trays are assembled, they are placed on locked food carts. Each cart is sealed, logged, transported along predetermined routes, handled by designated staff. At no point are carts left unattended. Meal delivery times are scheduled to the minute, reducing unpredictability and inmate movement. By the time a tray reaches a cell door, it has passed through multiple layers of accountability. Why there is no hot communal food? One question often asked. Why not serve food family style, or allow inmates to eat together under supervision? At ADX Florence, the answer is simple and documented. Communal eating introduces communication opportunities, coordinated behavior, potential violence, exchange of contraband. By eliminating shared meals, the prison eliminates an entire category of risk. This is consistent with ADX Florence's core philosophy: remove opportunities, not just react to them. Food safety under extreme conditions. Despite its security focus, ADX Florence is still bound by federal food safety regulations. Documented requirements include temperature checks, sanitation inspections, staff food safety training, medical review of meal plans. Failure to meet these standards exposes the Bureau of Prisons to legal liability. Multiple inspections over the years have focused on sanitation and nutrition, not secrecy. There is no verified evidence that ADX Florence operates outside federal food safety law. When the kitchen goes quiet, When the final meal is delivered, the kitchen shuts down. No late-night snacks. No unscheduled food. No exceptions without authorization. For inmates, this means hunger, or fullness, lasts until morning. For staff, it means documentation, cleanup, and preparation for the next identical cycle. Day after day. Tray after tray. The system works because it never changes. Food at ADX Florence is designed to be forgettable. That is not an accident. Routine reduces conflict. Predictability reduces leverage. Boredom reduces volatility. But as we'll explore next, inmates still find ways to resist, and sometimes food becomes the tool they use. Refusal, resistance, and the final control. When an inmate refuses to eat. Inside ADX Florence, refusing food is one of the very few actions an inmate can take entirely on their own. Food refusal, sometimes called a hunger strike, is not uncommon in high-security prisons, but at ADX Florence, it carries immediate attention. According to Bureau of Prisons policy, any missed meal is documented. When an inmate refuses multiple meals in succession, medical and administrative protocols are triggered. This is not treated as protest at first. It is treated as a health risk. Medical oversight and monitoring. Once an inmate refuses food for a sustained period, typically 72 hours or more, according to documented federal procedures, medical staff become involved. This may include daily health checks, monitoring weight and hydration, mental health evaluations, documentation for potential court review. The Bureau of Prisons states that its goal is preservation of life, not punishment. Medical monitoring continues for as long as food refusal persists. Force feeding, a legal line. Force feeding is one of the most controversial practices in corrections. At ADX Florence, force feeding is not automatic and not routine. Court records confirm that. Force feeding requires legal authorization. It is considered a last resort. Decisions involve medical staff, prison administrators, and federal courts. In several high-profile federal cases, judges have authorized force feeding when an inmate's life was at imminent risk and the government demonstrated a compelling interest in preserving life. These actions remain legally contentious, but they are documented, regulated, and subject to judicial oversight. Why food refusal matters here. In most prisons, hunger strikes can attract attention from other inmates, media, or advocacy groups. At ADX Florence, isolation changes that dynamic. There are no cellmates to witness the protest. No communal spaces. No immediate audience. Food refusal here is quiet. And yet, it remains one of the few acts of resistance available in a system designed to remove agency. Food as the final structure. After decades of lawsuits, inspections, and oversight, one fact remains consistent. ADX Florence feeds its inmates by the book. Meals are nutritionally sufficient by federal standards. Delivered on schedule. Closely monitored. Legally scrutinized. What makes food at ADX Florence significant is not what's on the tray, but what surrounds it. Silence. Isolation. Repetition. In a prison built to eliminate influence, food becomes one of the last human systems still operating on a daily rhythm. What food reveals about ADX Florence? ADX Florence was designed to answer one question. What happens when the most dangerous inmates are placed in the most controlled environment possible? Food reveals the answer quietly. There is no starvation. No indulgence. No choice. Just structure. And in a place where nearly everything is restricted, that structure becomes the system itself. Inside the world's most secure prison, food is not about comfort or community. It is about order. Every tray delivered at ADX Florence reflects a system built on predictability, legality, and control, tested repeatedly in courtrooms and inspections, and still standing. For the inmates who live there, each meal is more than sustenance. It is proof that time is still moving. If you found this documentary informative, consider subscribing for more fully researched deep dives into the world's most secretive institutions. Let us know in the comments what prison system or case you want explored next. Thanks for watching.